Hello, and welcome to another video. This time around, I'll be focusing on how to build an Omnimon team and then tackling the Billion Title Challenge, aka UN Rush, with a pretty low budget team. A lot of people have asked about how to get the Omnimon Joe cycle started and also about equips, so I'll first give an overview of the team members, the latents, and equips. You could skip ahead to here for the actual gameplay if that's what you want. If you want to hear the team details, stick around. And if you found this video helpful, please remember to like and subscribe. Hopefully this video helps some of you clear the title dungeon, or maybe it gives you an idea of how to build your own Omnimon team. The building blocks of any Omnimon team is 3 copies of him, with a supporting orb generator on a 1 or 2 turn cooldown. For the budget version, you could run the free and RAM versions as subs and pair with the friend Omnimon. For my title clear, I'll be using the free version. If you have 2 or more RAM Omnimons, you'll have a much easier time since the freebie will struggle to fully cap at times. Not to mention that the free one has lower stats and is missing a barrel awakening, which means that you'll need to fit in more team HP awakenings to survive some hits. You could lead with your own Omnimon, but TK is generally a much better option due to the HP buff and fake move time from his later skill. For this dungeon, there is one undead animation, meaning that once you kill an enemy, they will perform an action right before they die. Your leader skill damage reduction goes away since this is counted as 1 turn passing. Floor's 3 preemptive hit is 200k damage, which will be impossible to meet with dual Omnimon leaders, as my budget team barely hits 100k raw HP if you were to switch Omnimon and TK. So with TK, you have more raw HP and a counter to time debuffs, roulettes, and the auto heal is pretty handy too. Only matching 1 TPA of fire, water, and light will give you 10 total combos, so this pairing will have an easy time dealing with combo shields, because even if you get combo debuff, you still have a lot of leftover orbs to help you overcome that debuff. Omni-Omni pairings do more combos if you make more than 4 TPAs, but having TK as an asymmetrical pairing makes playing the team so much easier. Not to mention that he also covers clouds and blind resist. TK does have a conditional transformation active skill that requires 10 light orbs on the board. The best unit to fulfill this requirement is Hikari. It's possible to get those 10 light orbs with certain equips, but this is a much less stressful way to get TK to transform. With 4 Ls, she can help recover assist. And while her OEs might not be enough to fully heal from 1 heal TPA match, your healing is also supported by TK's auto heal, which altogether should be more than enough to fully heal most of the time. Hikari's attack and recovery buffs also help support your healing and can get rid of problematic attack debuff. She and TK are both exchangeable for 7-star GFEs, which might be pricey if you don't have that much GFE fodder, but these 2 are pretty crucial to the team, so I would say they are worth the price if you can manage it. There are builds that don't use either of these units, and if we happen to get a Disney collab run, then Hikari will be outclassed by Aurora. But as of right now, TK and Hikari are the best units for the typical Omnimon teams. Joe is also a very important unit to Omnimon teams. As a mid-rarity unit, unfortunately, he can only be obtained from the RAM. It's possible to replace him with some other orb generators with low cooldown active skills. Dark Aiden and Daywolf could work for this role, and these 2 have a light attribute so they can get TK's HP buff without needing an equip to grant them Blades of Attribute. There are also a few other units out there that can at least guarantee 3 orbs of each attribute that Omnimon needs, such as Red Aiden, Wood Raijin, and Evo Orihime, but these Joe replacements might require multiple transformations or not make enough orbs to guarantee a kill. So these are not optimal due to all of that, and also because these are non-Digimon units, so you'll be missing on a lot of bulk since you should be using the Digimon badge with this team. Assuming you have Joe, this team has consistent orb regeneration, a cleric, handles damage void shields and damage absorptions, can recover assist, nullifies or fixes attack, recovery, and move time debuffs, and overrides problematic roulettes. The transforming Digimon units all have aging sync awakenings, and to unlock it, you will need the Rainbow Metal Exchange equip, Digivice, and the descended boss, Apocalypse. Like always, you will need at least 100k coins and all of the required units to be both max level and max skilled. This might be especially difficult for new players since the Digivice needs 20 skill ups and Apocalypse needs 50. With Apocalypse, you can keep clearing the descended dungeon and fuse all of the dupes to get skill ups, but for the Digivice, you will need to use pies. Eventually, we'll get the Sync Awakening Tamaja, but who knows if that will come before the title challenge is over. not to mention that it'll cost 500k MP, which again will be hard for new players. Thankfully, for January, we'll have quests that give 5 million MP altogether, but again, we have no idea when exactly we'll get that Tamaja. There are a few other mechanics that this team doesn't tackle directly. Omnimon might face more issues if these become too problematic. This team does not fix portions, but these might not be a big deal because you can still match enough TPAs on a 5x4 board, but Joe's active skill doesn't generate any heal orbs in small boards, so you could die if TK's auto heal isn't enough. With proper timing and dungeon knowledge, you can time your TK's active skill with the board strength so that you can ensure that your roulette stays within bounds, and during Joe turns, you can fish out heal orbs from TK's roulette. The team also does not solve HP debuffs, but with the team's ridiculously large bulk from all of those aging awakenings, these won't matter much in this and the next endgame dungeon, SN5. The billion title dungeon has only one HP fix floor, Noah. She fixes your HP to half its value for 3 turns. Thankfully, you can style out this debuff. In other older dungeons with more punishable or unstallable HP debuffs, Omnimon teams will not have an out for that mechanic. So you might have to include a cleric like Kohaku or Circlia to solve that issue. Attribute absorption shields are common enough in most dungeons, and we don't have a unit in the team that counters this. But since the team matches more than 2 attributes, a common way to solve this mechanic is to use a helper Omnimon that has the attribute absorption void latent. It's important to have that latent on your last Omnimon due to the way that damage being order works. Damage from main attributes is first calculated from left to right. Then, damage from third and second sub-attributes from left to right are calculated. This means that for tanky enemies, you will have to time your helper's Omnimons for the billion cap break to ensure the kill. You could also put the attribute absorption latent on the other Omnimons to be more consistent against that mechanic. But most of the time, only having it on the helper is enough. And here, I show it against the 2 floor with attribute absorption. Since Omnimon has TPA awakenings, you could put the unmatchable recovery latent to recover 1 turn of unmatchable debuff per TPA awakening. Using this latent means that if an enemy gives you unmatchable debuffs, you could get away without using your cleric if the debuff is not for that long. I use this latent in this team as there are 2 instances where you get unmatchable debuffs for either a turn or 2, and I either want to save Hikari's active skill or don't want to bother timing her active skill just for that debuff. Putting 6 slot latents on Omnimons means that they can sometimes be skill delayed, since you can only put 2 SDRs at most. Since Omnimons and TK's leader skill only require 3 attributes, you could depend on TK's roulette for orb generation and stall until you can cycle your Omnimons again. If you expect a leader swap in a dungeon, then you will obviously need the leader swap resist latent. TK is a much better candidate for that latent since Omnimon can make much better use of other latents, whether it be killers or the other 6 slot latents. That's why I recommend getting your own TK so you can run him as your leader and get more out of Omnimon. Thankfully, this dungeon doesn't have this mechanic, so your leader doesn't have to have that latent. And due to there being a few 3-turn or longer skill delays in the dungeon, you should run 4 SDRs on TK since you'll need his roulette whenever your orb generators are delayed. With Joe and Hikari, you have 2 candidates for the assist recovery latent. Joe is a much better option since he has 2 attributes to choose from. If you need to recover more than 4 turns of assist removal, it'll be easier and faster to match light and water else. The Poison Surge latent is commonly used in new dungeons with super altitude and type-specific HP buffs. You could die to lethal Poison Skyfall matches, since you have low healing potential and a lot more HP. This latent is usually put on Hikari. But for the billion title dungeon, since there is only a normal Poison Skyfall Surge and no super altitude, you might want to go with RCB plus latents. This will make dealing with thorns much easier, but try not to go too wild moving those without Hikari's RCB buff. These are the subs and latents I'll be using for my clear. As you can see, there's space for a few other 1 or 2 slot latents like killers or stat boost latents. But this team, along with the equips I'll be using, can tank anything in the billion title challenge, so I don't need the extra latents. There's a fortune delay on the first floor, and Joe only has 2 SDRs. Therefore, to transform in turn 1, you'll need to have 34 effective skill boosts. This team has 16 skill boosts plus 3 turns of haste from TK and Hikari's active skill. And the Omnimon's Super Awakening can bring in 6 more skill boosts. Let's say I go with those Super Awakenings. Now I have a possible 25 effective skill boosts. But let's see how many more I can get from my equips. Speaking of which, other mechanics like tape, jammers, poison, sticky blinds, and negative or skyfall can be addressed with the right equips if you so desire. Let me share which ones I'll be using and what they tackle. The boss hits you for 10 million damage at Super Assault, and this team cannot tank that without a shield. There's no space for a unit with a shield active skill, so the best option is to use a low cooldown shield equip and overcharge one of your units. You could put that equip on TK, Hikari, or Joe. I would advise against Hikari since the boss gives a large attack debuff that lasts for 10 turns and you need her active skill to get rid of it. So that leaves TK and Joe, and it's up to your preference, but I like my shield on TK since you're gonna have to stop using one of those units' active skill. If you stop using Joe, then you will have to fish out orbs every other turn to activate your later skill damage reduction from TK's roulette. You'll also have to worry about locked orbs, but these shouldn't be too much of an issue. The boss gives you 25 turns of locked orb skyfall, so you would have to get rid of that before you get too many on the board, which shouldn't be too hard. Just make an L on the first turn. If you stop using TK, you only have to ensure that you are healing enough every turn without TK's auto heal. The only possible way to get troll if you stop using TK is if Omnimon's second stage active skill only gives you 3 heals and you have a lot of thorns on the board. I would rather risk that than spending more time fishing out orbs from the roulette. For the shield, I'm going to go with Indra's equip. 2 skill boosts, 2 team HP, and the 2-turn big shield is great for the boss. Hopefully, this is a unit most people have. If not, then any other large shield equip should work. I think you could go down to a 50% damage reduction shield with the right amount of team HPs, but the larger, the better and safer. The shield doesn't have to last for 2 turns, but if you use a multi-turn shield, you have a safety net in case anything goes wrong. These equips also have 2 skill boosts and 2 team HP awakenings. If you have the ones with lower cooldowns, you should try to use them, as the ones with lower cooldowns mean less stalling for a unit to overcharge. Hikari could honestly have any equip. In general, you want to have at least 2 OEs of each color to fully counter or to reduce the chances of negative orbs. A farmable equip with lots of OEs is Starling's Dress, but I'm going to go with this free equip from the Bartender's event. By going with this instead of Starling's Dress, I technically lose out on 1 OE, since I'm exchanging 2 Dark OEs for 1 Heal OE. But this extra hard OE allows this team to heal significantly more since I am putting this equip on a unit that already has a bunch of other heal OEs and also has a really high RCB stat. This is what I would heal with Starling's equip, and this is what I would heal with the Bartender's equip, both assuming I hit 11C and match a heal TPA with 1 heal OE. Now on Joe, I could have anything too. With him, I am going with a Team HP equip that has a Cross Awakening. Later in the dungeon, the UN3 boss gives 10 turns of sticky blinds. You can power through these, but I'm sure some people might not want to deal with that mechanic, so I'm putting a Cross Awakening in the team to deal with this debuff. I am putting it on Joe, since with him, you can make either light or water crosses to reduce the length of that debuff. I am going to go with Amaterasu's Comb. In addition to a cross and 2 team HP awakenings, I also get tape resist and team RCBs. You might not even need the tape resist though, as only the green spawn on floor 3 gives you a tape, but it's not for that long. The team RCB awakenings will also help with Hikari's healing and thus let me have an easier time when dealing with thorns. One somewhat budget and better equipped is Summer Fujin's. It exchanges the tape and 1 team RCB for a skill boost and 4 OEs. But again, Joe's and Hikari's equips could be anything that add bulk and OEs. The cross and tape resist awakenings are not necessarily needed but are nice to have. So with this setup, I am now up to 27 effective skill boosts and need at least 7 more. A lot of people wonder how you get the Omnimon and Joe loop up and running. I like to use 2 or 3 turn haste equips on my Omnimons, preferably those that also have damage awakening. The Digimon collab has one equip you could use, Debimon's equip. It has 3 effective skill boosts and a 7C awakening. It's not the best, but it's something. I'll be using 2 of these equips on my sub Omnimons. So that brings me up to 33 effective skill boosts. I just need 1 more. As for replacements, anything with 3 effective skill boosts can work for the free Omnimon. For the Rem Omni, you should try to get an equip that has a damage awakening on top of 3 effective skill boosts. Seawolf's equip works, and this one has 4 effective skill boosts. In this video, I am actually using 1 Debimon and 1 Seawolf equip, but let's pretend I have Debimon's equip. That extra skill boost from Seawolf's equip is not needed at all, so I'm not gonna count it. I'm sort of insisting on 2 Devimon equips, since most people watching this video are or have been rolling in Digimon and probably already have a few copies, so this equip should be very accessible. I used to have a bunch, but I exchanged for 1 Omnimon and I only kept 1 Devimon. But yeah, just pretend I have 2 Devimon equips. For the helper Omnimon, I'll get a little bit fancier, since I could get a friend to help me out. I'll pair with an Omnimon with Halloween Kiori's equip. This equip also has 3 effective skill boosts, but brings in more bulk and has a higher personal damage multiplier, which I do want on the last Omnimon so that I can ensure a one-hit KO on the enemy with attribute absorption. For this specific team, I also need those 2 team HPs to have enough bulk to survive Senshoga's 50% resolve moveset, which is the second highest hit in the dungeon. I won't have a shield up for that hit, so this is the minimum HP to have for this dungeon. With Kiori's equip, I am now at 36 effective skill boost, which means I can drop one of Omnimon's 2 skill boost Super Awakening and get the TPA SA for more consistent damage. I'll make that change on my Rem Omnimon since he can make really good use out of that damage boost. My friend's Omnimon does enough damage with the Tensi equip, and the free Omnimon actually struggles to cap on his second and third sub attributes even with the TPA plus Super Awakening. My Rem Omni doesn't cap to 40 billion on his third sub attribute, but he comes really close when you match 4 TPAs. Speaking of damage, you can pretty much one-shot most non-UN bosses with 4 TPAs. Sometimes you can even get away with just 3, so try to match 4 TPAs if you're going for the kill. To be on the safe side, only go for the kill when the Rem Omnimons are cap broken, as again, the free Omni will struggle with damage. Okay, now that my team is ready, let me go into the gameplay. I'll be making comments when there's something of note. If you follow my moves exactly, at least for the first half of the dungeon, you should be golden and in the clear. Like I said, Joe and the other units with only 2 SDRs will get delayed. To transform Joe on turn 1, I'll need 34 effective skill boosts. For this dungeon, you can delay everyone on the first floor, but that's not usually the case in every single dungeon, especially for most endgame content. Therefore, I usually like to use haste equips. To get the Omnimon and Joe cycle running, I start off by using the sub Omnimons to turn charge equips, then Hikari and TK. After that, the free Omnimon's first stage active skill is up, so I use it. Then, I use my helper Omnimon's equip, which is also a 2-turn haste. Now I can use my free Omnimon's second stage active skill to guarantee an activatable ward, followed by the Rem Omnimon sub's first stage active skill. I don't need the Void Absorption and Pierce effects again, but I will need the Orb Generation from his second stage active skill on the next turn. After all of this, Joe can finally transform and haste my other units. And by the third turn, I'll have my Omnimons and Joe ready to go. Don't use TK's active skill on the first floor. We need to make sure that we have access to his roulette within the 5x4 bounds on the next floor. Match the whole board and go for the kill. Do make sure to heal and watch out for the thorn, as there's going to be a preemptive head on the next floor. For floor 2, use your sub Omnimon's second stage active skill to get an activatable ward and bring Fagin to his super assault. He will hit you for a little over 95k, give you a recovery debuff, and you will most likely have some thorns on your board, so be very careful when matching again. At his super assault, you will now have access to the Omnimon and Joe cycle. Use the free Omnimon first, since we'll need to deal with attribute absorption on the next floor. Use Hikari's and TK's active skill to clear the Awoken Bind and be able to fish out heal orbs, since on small boards, Joe will not give you a heal match. You could kill Fagin if you match 4 TPAs, but you can afford to take a hit here, and that's what I did here. When you kill Fagin, his undead move is to delay your leaders by 4 turns. TK is unaffected since he has 4 SDRs, but the helper Omni will get delayed by 2 turns. Thankfully, since we didn't use him immediately when he was ready, he can take the 2-turn delay with no problem. Again, the undead animation means your leader skill damage reduction goes away, and if there's a preemptive hit on the next floor, you could die if you don't have enough raw HP. For floor 3, you need to deal with an attribute absorption shield regardless of who spawns here. The helper Omni is nicely timed for this floor, since he alone will kill this floor with his 20 billion cap rate. Make sure to match 4 TPAs, or else you'll take an extra turn here and also against the next floor. Do make sure to heal too, since there's a big preemptive on the next floor. If you bring down Machine Zeus to low enough HP, he will awoke and bind you, and his carry won't be up. The best course of action is to one-shot him, and if you kill with the 20 billion cap rate on the last floor, you can easily one-shot this floor with the helper Omnimon's 40 billion cap rate. Machine Zeus can actually kill you, since one of his movesets will hit for over 273k HP. We can't afford to take that, so just follow what I've done and one-shot him. For floor 5, you will most likely have some leftover Machine Zeus roulette. The enemy here gives 1 turn of unmatchables for 2 random attributes. Here we have to say Hikari's active skill, since we need her recovery buff on the next floor. So just match 1 TPA of whatever color you can and set up the other orbs so that they'll match after being recovered. If none of your attributes get hit with unmatchable, I would still take a turn here to stall out the shrunken board. On the second turn, go for the kill. He will give you a roulette that you can use to fish out orbs. Don't use TK's active skill. I like to save him for when we go for the kill on the next floor. Noah will fix your HP to half its value, but you can stall at this and the small board debuffs here. She has a chance of giving you 4 roulettes every turn, which is why I like to save TK for the kill, just in case she gives you these. I like to go for the kill when Hikari's buff have 2 turns remaining. This lines up with the portion debuff going away if you've been doing the same moves that I have. Floor 7 will remove assists for 3 turns, but you don't have to recover them. It's more important to go for the kill here, since you can take a hit from this enemy, even with your assist. so make sure to kill him dead. Having a Rem Omnimon's 40 billion cap rate will ensure that you kill it, as long as you match 4 TPAs. If you made a mistake along the way, you can still kill it with the Rem Omnimon's 12 billion cap rate, but you will need to match 5 TPAs instead. Hikari is perfectly on time for floor 8, and her active skill counters both the Awoken Bind and attack debuff. You can kill this floor with 4 TPAs and an L to finally get your assist back. Do make sure to match that L, otherwise you will die to the next floor's preempted hits without your team HP awakenings from your equips. Floor 9 randomly delays your units, up to 4 turns. More likely than not, your orb generators will get delayed, so use TK's roulette to fish out the needed orbs to activate your leader skill damage reduction. Stall until you can cycle Omnimon and Joe again. Once those are up, maybe consider not using TK, since his roulette might distract you on the next floor's puzzle. If you go into the next floor without 2 turns of TK's auto heal, make sure that you'll have Hikari's RCB buff available to you right away on floor 10. You will need to find a way to heal, at least a little bit, so even TK's 30% works. But back to this floor. Time your kills with your helper Omnimon's cap rates, since there are 2 enemies with attribute absorption shield. If you don't, it can cost you the run, because you could leave some of those enemies with a sliver of health. Floor 10 is Sarah, who voids your recovery for a turn as a preemptive. Either use Hikari to recover from that, or if she's not up, as long as you have TK's auto heal, you should be able to take a hit. At Super Resolve, Sarah will give you 2 puzzles where you have to make 0 combos. If you have TK's roulette, you might get distracted, but I guess it could also help you to make things easier. From here on out, there isn't anything too tricky. Just keep cycling Omni and Joe, and keep looping TK and Hikari's active skill. It's only on floor 14 where you will want to time Hikari's active skill with Senchoga Super Assault, but until then, just keep looping these effects whenever you can. Wanshu gives you 10 turns of sticky blinds, which you could power through, but this team has an access to a cross, so you could take a turn or two making crosses with Joe's colors to get rid of this debuff. At Super Assault, this enemy can delay skills up to 4 turns, so you might have to stall like you did on floor 9 with the cats. Wanshu will lock some orbs, so be very conscious since you can get those orbs to change with TK's roulette. Once your Ovnis and Joe are back to cycle, you could stop using your TK's active skill. As long as you have Hikari's RCB buff, you should be healing more than enough, so try to get an early start overcharging TK. Sensuga removes assist for 3 turns, so a single L will recover them. This floor is where you want to time Hikari's active skill with the boss's Super Assault move, since this is the second biggest hit, and he will also drastically reduce your recovery, so you could die from not healing enough on the next hit. And finally, the boss. Greg gives 25 turns of Lock Skyfall and a large attack debuff as preemptives. If you are overcharging Joe instead of TK for the shield, you will want to make an L ASAP since you'll be fishing out orbs from TK's roulette. Also, don't bother trying to break the shields if you haven't recovered from his attack debuff with Hikari's active skill. You're not gonna be able to break it, so save your time and just activate your leader skill until then. Once all the shields are broken, Greg will give you a bunch of thorns, so be careful with your movement. Now, it's a matter of stalling for the big shield equip. Make sure you have it on when you bring him down to Super Assault. As long as you match 4 or more TPAs, and depending on which cap break you have on your Omnimons, you'll deal damage anywhere from 15 to 20% of Greg's total HP, give or take. In this run, I just eyeballed it, and I failed to bring Greg down to 50% when I meant to, but since I had a 2-turn shield, I suffered no consequences. And there you have it. That was a pretty easy clear. The start might be a little tricky since it requires you to use specific Omnimon active skill stages to go for the kill. Once you get past floor 10, you can pretty much turn your brain off, except for the last 2 enemies' super resolve moves. Obviously, you can make this team even better by including 3 REM Omnimons and having better equips, though the most difficult part of the team to obtain will be Joe, since he is a mid-rarity REM unit. Let me know if anyone tries this with a non-Joe orb generator. I didn't get around to it, but surely it's possible, especially if you have more premium equips. This setup is pretty much the way to run Omnimon for pretty much all content, except obviously for dungeons with restrictions like no dupes or all attribute. The team will get you far, but in NA, we'll probably struggle a bit for whenever SN5 drops. We will most likely miss out on Aurora from Disney, so it'll be a bit harder to get enough bulk for that upcoming dungeon. Aurora's active skill gives you both a cleric and looping shield effect, not to mention that she also has a bunch of team HP awakenings, which will make up more than enough for missing the bulk from the Digimon badge. One NA-friendly build for SN5 will be this one, where we drop TK and Hikari for Gin Tonic and Stella. The latter is a BGM unit from the Gung Ho collab. Her Evo gives a looping roulette and shield, and this unit brings in a good amount of heal OEs and team HP awakening. Gin Tonic has a fixed move time leader skill like TK, but it's generally not as good. On top of lower move time, the leader skill has lower effective HP, doesn't give an HP buff, and has a lower attack multiplier. Even with all of this, you can still make a team that's bulky enough to clear SN5. There are also some budget Omnimon clears for that dungeon, but if you want convenience, you will probably want to go with the Gin and Tonic team with 3 REM Omnimons. We will probably see Gin Tonic in the upcoming Player's Choice Gadfest, so if you don't have her, you might want to do a few rolls there. As for Stella, the easiest way to obtain her would be to spend the $30 for the bundle. If you don't spend money in the game, you might want to save up magic stones for that collab. Stella is not the only good thing from the REM, as there are some pretty decent equips and leaders. That is my next goal, to save up for Gung Ho collab. Now that I got my Omnimons, it's time for me to save up for future events. I'm not expecting Disney, but I want to be prepared in case we get a run or a reskin, since I would like to get Aurora. Watch out for my rolls video next. I did those rolls when the collab dropped on my Twitch channel, but I still have to finish up editing my VOD so I can post a contents video in this YouTube channel. Before I go, I would like to thank you all for watching, and special thanks go out to AG's Number 1 and Awkward Panda, Breastfeeding Obama, Dark Silencers, Hella Derpy, and Nicor94 for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. Okay, that does it for this video. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.